Welcome back to Black Swan Outdoors, and today we are going to talk about the Node MCU 32 programming or development boards. These are super nifty and very useful tools to have with you. They're lightweight, they're actually pretty robust, and they can be used for a lot of different functions. So I've written about these before on blog posts. I have done some YouTube videos on there. And I think that there's some assumption when the people see things that look like this, that it's outside of your reach if you're not a programmer, if you don't understand, programming, or if you're not super tech. Now, I'm not a super tech person, to be honest. I do like technology. I wouldn't consider myself a Luddite, but I'm not a programmer. I'm not an IT specialist by any means. And I still find these to be useful. So I think that if you are interested in increasing your capability with some interesting kind of tools, then this might be a video for you. So essentially, the MCU stands for a microcontroller unit, and that's exactly what this thing does. This actually communicates with off of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And it is essentially the Node MCU reference is the Wi-Fi or the firmware that you put inside this device, that's programmed inside this device, and used to control many different things. And so there's a USB connection here. Essentially, you just connect that to your cable, and then from there, you can just connect the other end to your cell phone, providing the board power, and then whatever program that you're using, you use it off of your phone. So it's kind of, you can think of it as kind of like a little microcomputer in that regard, but it's pre-programmed for a specific task. I have a slightly different board as well. This particular one is very, very basic, very cheap. I think I picked it up for maybe about $5 or so. A little bit more expensive board. This one's from D-Strike. It's a D-Author OLED Mini, and it came with deauthorizing or deauthor program firmware actually already programmed into it. So you didn't have to program it, but it's essentially the same board. It does the same thing, except for it has an LED screen, which is nice. But it also has a antenna port as well, as a larger antenna than this device, and I can take my antenna from one of my little mesh communicator units here, and I can plug this right into that, and now I have a little bit more reach with a little better antenna, and I can actually swap out this antenna for an even better antenna if I want, if I need that. I can connect it into my communicator, my communication box that I've done a couple of videos on as well. And so that's why I carry this particular one with this box here, and then this device I generally have with me in my travel items when I'm traveling. Okay, so why would you want this? Why is this interesting? What can you do with these? Well, for me, there's three main things. So you can do a lot of different stuff with them. You can program to do lots of different things. So by no means is this going to be an exhaustive video on all the things that you can do. The primary need or primary use, or the three main uses, are for deauthorizing Wi-Fi, then for extending your Wi-Fi, and then for detecting any kind of tracking bugs that might be put in. So this particular board, as I mentioned before, came with firmware already in there, and I mentioned about deauthorizing. So for those who aren't familiar with it, you can check out the blog to get a background, or you can certainly Google it. But basically what you're doing is you're upsetting the Wi-Fi connectivity in the area. So you can think of it as jamming. It's technically called spoofing, but you could think of it in layman's terms as jamming, or kind of knocking out the ability for people to have Wi-Fi. So if you were in a cafe or an airport and there's a bunch of people sitting doing some work, you could certainly turn this device on and wreak some havoc. You could knock out the Wi-Fi in that area. People would not be able to connect. So why is it important when you travel? Well, so as we have expanded into the Internet of Things, and interconnectivity with the devices that we have, as well as the growth of Amazon, there are tons of spy equipment on the market. That's video surveillance, audio surveillance, things like that. These are things that can be put into Airbnbs, they're in restaurants, and all sorts of different places around us that people are using this technology to protect their assets. Most often, or for even worse, spying, literally spying on people, or, quite frankly, there's a lot of perverts out there too. So if you have a capability to knock out Wi-Fi, you have the capability to knock out their ability to spy on you, essentially. So this could give you some time. Let's say if you go to an Airbnb or a shady hotel, locker room, tanning salon, anything like that, you could essentially knock out that Wi-Fi, and then that would give you enough time to actually look for those physical devices if you needed to or if you wanted to. Now, in terms of some more on the tradecraft end, most intelligence officers don't have access to technical surveillance equipment often. But if you're in the field and you need that, you're going to do what other people do, what private detectives do, or anyone else that needs a capability for a listening device or cameras, as we just talked about. They're just going to go on Amazon and order it, just like anything else. So there is a lot of intelligence officers actually out there, those that don't have large budgets, from countries that don't have large budgets, to operatives that want to do their own technical snooping. And so if you were going to need to have a private conversation with somebody, you could use this device then prior to the conversation to knock out the capability of video or audio transmissions being recorded. So it's kind of a layer of safety as well from a tradecraft perspective. So deauthorizing is I think an important tool. It's one that you have to be careful with because it is highly illegal to knock out other people's Wi-Fi. So if you did do this, say, in an airport for fun as a prank, you could be looking at some pretty steep fines, if not potentially jail time, depending on where you're at. So, these are sold as tools for examining Wi-Fi connectivity. And so if you have no reason to be carrying such a tool like this, a little suspect. So just keep in mind that there are many different things you can do with these things. Oftentimes they're applied to uses that are kind of on the up and up for IT specialists and such. But there are some things that you can use and implement these things to protect yourself. Now, the other thing that I mentioned that was really interesting is because these communicate with Bluetooth technology, and these things can actually detect AirTags. So you could certainly use some apps for the Android tags or the Apple tags. They're very, very common, these programs. But the tags themselves are perhaps even more common in the sense that people are using, particularly when they travel. So if you're in an airport and someone wanted to follow you, let's say, for example, to give a scenario, you're in an airport, someone notices a very expensive necklace or watch or whatever on your person as you're walking through the airport, or even in a hotel lobby. They could slip an AirTag into your luggage or handbag, whatever, and then it would take them right to your room. So all they'd have to do is sit in the lobby and wait for you to leave to go out and do the things you're doing on your vacation. break into your hotel room, which is actually extremely easy to do. Take your jewelry, passport, money, whatever, and get out. So from just a kind of a regular travel perspective, it's kind of nice to have this capability. There's other types of sniffing devices out there for different types of technical surveillance, including tracking, bugs, GPS and stuff. And we've written about this before in our series. And this will be written about and talked about extensively in our future book on tradecraft, which is coming out shortly. So you could certainly, buy these devices that do this, but they're actually not very good. Most of them are actually just kind of toys, essentially, or just kind of gimmicky. And you're not going to be able to use like a software-defined radio effectively to find, Bluetooth tags. It's better to kind of have kind of a more specific purpose tool for that. And for $5, or under $10 rather, you can use something like this to find that AirTag on your luggage before you go into your room, in the lobby, once you get to your room, at least so that you know that you're clean of any kind of tracking tags. If you're an Uber driver, this might be something to think about too. People can easily slip a tag into the seat of your car, and then all they have to do is look at their phone to see where you're at. And they've already tracked you at the end of your shift back home, so they know where you're at in relation to them. They can break into your house, get your stuff, and get out with a high margin of safety. So again, even if you're just an Uber driver or doing other tasks in and around other people, not to say that you need to be paranoid, but it's not bad to have the capability, or it's not a bad thing to be able to say that you can kind of sweep your equipment, your gear, your home, your car, occasionally, so that you can make sure that you're not being tracked. So the last thing that you can do with this, and I've only done this a little bit, and messed around with this, is extending Wi-Fi. So because this is ability to connect, you can kind of create a Wi-Fi node. So let's say if you are trying to use what we call a ghost phone, so you're trying to use your phone to kind of communicate on a more secure way, that you could use a phone with Wi-Fi connectivity to, say, like a coffee shop. But let's say you're too far away from that coffee shop to be able to connect to their Wi-Fi, or a home, or whomever, wherever you can get kind of free Wi-Fi, a mall, I don't know. You could actually put one of these devices in between where you're wanting to connect from and that coffee shop, that Wi-Fi place. And this can actually act as a sort of Wi-Fi relay, extending that connectivity. So again, with the communicator, if you have access to the antenna, this has magnets on it. You can slap this on a vehicle, on a post, under beams or somewhere. And now you have the ability to extend Wi-Fi for you to communicate with a Wi-Fi based cell phone, for using, of course, encrypted texting. It's for some really, really safe communications. So those are the kind of the three big things that you can do with these boards. There's other things as well. So what I'd like you in the comments down below is, if you've used these boards for other tasks, please include that in there for the other viewers. I would greatly appreciate that. And also so that I can continue to learn. If you have any questions or comments, please put them down. I'll do the best I can to answer these. But all you need to do is pick up one of these boards, download any open source firmware flashing, find a program on GitHub, whatever you want to do, flash it, and plug it into your phone, and you're ready to go. It's really just that simple. Yeah, and like I said, if you have any questions or comments, please throw them down below. And if you're interested in tradecraft and kind of some of these skills, again, my book on tradecraft will be out shortly. It's in the review process, so hopefully you can look out for that and enjoy. So with that, thanks for reviewing, thanks for subscribing, and we'll be putting up more content shortly.